I'm up a long bit.
Right. Yeah.
Lean back and shut up.
I know, you're just like, she'll back like, man, it's back pretty hard. Yeah. However many hours is it? They're good retrievers. Yeah, games. Yeah.
Now, if they're awake, yes.
Oh, yeah. And then Lily and Mia are like 16-year-old and 4-year-old arguing nonstop. We had to flex in between them because they were just, because she drives Lily just absolutely crazy.
Lucy.
You don't have yours.
No, Lucy isn't.
I don't know why I didn't even miss it. Boy, when you do it right, I guess, huh?
All right, let's call the Blackfoot County Commission Board to order. This Tuesday, August 9th, 2022, Councilman Walden, call the roll. Here. Here. Please join us in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for the invocation.
Let us pray. Father, I'm reminded what the word tells us, that your loving kindness is better than life. I thank you for the gift of life, so this is a gift you have given to us. And today, may we give that gift back to you. That's the best gift we can give you for our lives. Today, God, grant us the peace that is needed. Grant us the understanding that is needed. Grant these men and women in this room the wisdom to know and to follow your favor today. God, may you prosper us by your mighty hand. And we come to understand that you're for us and not against us. And I just like this today is a special day somehow, some way, and I just declare that over this corporate setting. God, give us your favor in all areas of our lives, physically, spiritually, and emotionally. And we walk in your divine abundance and your perfect will. And we ask and we thank you for these things. In Jesus' name, God together say, amen. God bless you. Thank you. Good day, John. Appreciate you. Thank you.
I want to reconsider
Appreciate it.
I'd make a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes and approve the minutes as presented with the change.
Is there a second?
I'll say it.
Commissioner Reader, seconds. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 2. Yes. Item 2.
Make a motion to approve the estimated August 2022 payroll in the amount of $361,317.72.
Is Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Greenberg, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, Ms. Harrison, my notes here says we're still missing J.
Got it this morning.
Okay. So now all official reports are in and subject to your approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the official reports as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Weir, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4, line item transfers, there's 1, 3, and hopefully approve.
Make a motion to approve the line item transfers as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Greenberg, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Outstanding bills.
Make a motion to approve the outstanding bills in the amount of $389,075.42.
Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Greenberg, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 6. Proposed interlocal agreement with Kerr and Blanket counties for jail services. I do have a question to Sheriff, if you don't mind, coming up. So many times, these agreements are for us to house other prisoners. This one appears to be as if they house ours.
Yes.
And I couldn't find anywhere in the daily rate, is it $65? And is it, so it doesn't fluctuate, that's what's in the agreement?
Yeah, that's it, and the reason being that they do have a full medical 24-hour facility there. And they're $10 cheaper.
Currently, it's at 75,
Yes.
and we're still at 50.
We're at 52 right now. I have a motion that the attorney's looking at it to 58.
Okay. Commissioners.
I make a motion to authorize the county judge to sign the updated interlocal cooperation agreement between Kerr County and Blanco County for jail services.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Graham, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So, this next proposed resolution to authorize signatures for the general land office hazard mitigation grant should be, here we're authorizing me.
I make a motion, I'll make a motion to authorize a resolution naming Judge Gray as the authorized official for contractual documents and financial documents required by the GLO Hazard Mitigation Planning Program. Grant number is 22-130-005-D662.
Is there a second?
I'll say.
Commissioner Eager, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Commissioners, item 8 is on your agenda, but I'm not sure it is ready for prime time. Sorry, there's some questions. And Ms. Marquez, who is apparently associated with the Republican Party of Texas Executive Committee and specifically assigned to Senate District 25. Can't remember if that's our new Senate District or not, Don Campbell.
But, she's, sent this proposed disaster declaration, which I will not sign, but I will present to the Commissioner Court for you to consider. And I suspect that if you want to consider it something you might want to take up down the line. It's not that I don't believe in it, it's just that, I think it ought to be a Commissioner Court item, not just mine item. And if I did a disaster declaration, you have to take it up in 7 days anyway. My particular concerns about this, I believe in this declaration pretty strongly, but my particular concerns about it are there's some recitation of facts without any reference or citings. I have heard these numbers as well, that over 71,000 people have died from fentanyl that has come across the border, and that 3.2 million illegal aliens have been apprehended, and another 800,000, which makes 4 million, who weren't apprehended across the border in recent times. But I still think ought to have some sort of side to reference that, not just us blatantly saying disaster declaration. So I wanted to open this up for your discussion. If you want to entertain this, if they would present it in a form that has a little more substance to it, or if you don't want to entertain it at all. Down the road. I don't think it's ready today. Thoughts?
Move we pass it until it's ready.
All right, let's not make a motion, let's just do that.
This is good, okay. Good.
Then that takes us on to item 9, early voting polling sites, which are listed in the proposed order in your packet. And Ms. Spees, I believe, in the room if we want to ask any questions.
I make a motion to approve the order establishing the main early voting polling sites and schedule for the November 8th, 2022 general election.
Is there a second? Mr. Bangor, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10, optional fees.
I make a motion to go with option A for no change on the optional fees for motor vehicle registration for 2023.
Is there a second?
I'll say.
Commissioner Eager. Ms. Speeds, did you have anything you wanted to add to this? No, we're good. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 11. Actually, this discussion and possible action regarding releasing the maintenance bond is really a discussion and possible action moving from the construction bond to the maintenance bond. We'll be releasing the construction bond in the Hill subdivision.
We have not received the maintenance bond yet, but it will be in writing. So I make a motion to release the construction bond upon receiving the maintenance bond.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Weir, discussion.
Has all the signs and the roads, everything been marked?
Yes, sir.
There's only 2 phases in this project.
Only 2 what?
Phase.
So is this phase 1?
It's phase 1 and phase 2.
So it's.
So it's in total.
Yes, they still have construction going on with TechStop, but they've got $1 million bond with TechStop, so that doesn't.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 12, recognizing the continuing education Commissioner Leishman.
I'd like to make a motion acknowledging continuing education for Commissioner Leeson.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Eager, discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 13, an interlocal radio dispatch consoles.
So we received a grant through a Siri grant to pay for the construction of the Stonewall Tower site and partial payment of the Motorola upgrade consoles of the dispatch center. What I've worked out is this is an interlocal agreement with the Capital Area Council of Governments on the CAC for reimbursement for the payment of the console that we was lacking. They will be refunding us an amount of $342,051. So basically, we were able to provide a new tower at Stonewall and a new console for the amount of $109,000, which is a pretty good deal. So I would like to make a motion to authorize the county judge to sign an interlocal agreement between the Capital Area Council of Governments, Area Emergency Communications District, and Blaine County regarding radio dispatch consoles.
Is there a second? Second, Commissioner Weir, discussion. Let's back up just one step. So, console and tower for out of pocket, Blanco County, I think we said a little less than $110,000.
Correct.
And a console probably went to $1 million.
No, it was more than that. It was probably, we received a grant for $1,023,000.
Yeah, but the towers was a lot of money.
Right. So it was closer to $500,000, halfway.
And then more than $500,000 on the tower.
Well,
So so altogether, that 109 plus of the county was a lot better than 10 to 1 match.
but
And I won't go any further about how we benefited from gas shops.
correct. Back up during the original process, there was two projects that we looked at it and thought of Blanco County and Bastrop County, and there was not enough money to fund both of them, so Bastrop actually backed out and gave us their share. So which allowed us to do the entire Stonewall project and buy some of the material for the console. We had financed the rest, and now this is covering a lot of the finance.
Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 14, Commissioner Policeman approached by Williamson County. That's to have an incident command bus that is being removed from their fleet and offered to another county or entity, is a county or entity. We presently are sort of in competition, and I put this on the agenda with the other, and I think on the vote on any action taken, what I might like to see out of this is either a vote to authorize the commissioner to accept the bus or not. Perhaps no vote, no motion to be the same as a no vote. The reason to think about if we're interested in doing it today is because they're going to make the decision in between this meeting and our next meeting, so we have a chance to talk about it again before having to commit to doing the bus. He can tell you a lot about the ones that see you're looking at photos. It's a brand new, it's a big expensive bus. It's got a little age on it. It's 2008. It seems to be in pretty good shape. It has very, very low mileage for that kind of vehicle. They told the commissioner it's a I don't know if these are my words or their words, but call me, but it's a maintenance nightmare. But then again, anytime you have a piece of equipment like that, it's a maintenance nightmare. Anybody that knows a motor home can tell you, a large motor home can tell you that. I'll just give you my thoughts on it before, but my thought is, after thinking about it long and hard, because I don't really want to take my money to either, but thinking about it long and hard is, it would definitely be if it operates, as far as we know, it operates. If it operates like it's supposed to, definitely be a benefit to our county, maybe the surrounding counties. And if it's basically free and we have to take care of it, then it's an experiment. And if we don't like it after a year or so, if we experience higher fees than we think it ought to cost to operate one of these, we give it back. Or even surplus, or whatever happens. We don't have to continue. Nobody can make us keep it and make us operate. But to me, it's a pretty good experience. It'd be like if somebody gave me a free tractor. It might need a whole lot of stuff, it might take a lot of maintenance, and it might still be worth it to me, if the tractor's useful. So, those are how I'm looking at it. What do you have about this?
So 2008, it's a V12 gas engine. This was bought with Homeland Security grant funds back in 2008 or 2009. I can't remember when. So this is a regional asset. We requested this at 1 year during our fair and rodeo when we typically use a bus, and they said that it was out for maintenance. It wasn't available for us to ever use. We've used a bus similar to this, a little smaller, from the city of Marble Falls. But it's very, we've used it on multiple occasions. We've used it during a bomb threat. We've used it during our fair and rodeo and things of that nature. Talking to the EMC from Williamson County, he said basically, they use it for the radios and they use it for the air conditioning, which works excellent. This bus received an additional grant in 2012, I think. Yeah, 2012, which bought a bunch of servers and some radios and stuff like that. So the information that we received from Williamson County on their budget, their maintenance budget, I think is a little skewed because they purchased a lot of that equipment with grant funds. So when you look at I don't consider a new radio or a server for the bus to be a part of the maintenance. That's an upgrade that wasn't already installed. There's some things that are wrong with it. For instance, I heard I think that the camera right now doesn't work, and there's one automatic lift that needs a new solenoid. So, but other than that, everything else works. It would be an experience to utilize it. I can tell you this, we would have utilized it last week, all week long. So, and multiple fires and different incidents we would have used it, or done something like this. Right now, what we have to do is we have to rely on our neighboring counties to provide us, the equipment that we need. So this would just eliminate that process, and we'd also be able to help them out in times of need. A lot of times during these events, you have a command that personnel that are inside the bus, and then you have first responders that are just trying to cool down. So even having multiple, this could respond as well as the other one to different counties. One would be the command side of it, and the other one could be the cool down. That's kind of the way we worked it on the bomb threat. But talking to the EMC and the chief fire or EMS, whichever it was from Williamson County, the reason they're getting rid of it is because they say it's a money pit and they're going to go to a trailer stop.
And they have had at least 3 of our warranties, right?
Yes, this is CD3 HC, so CD1 and 2 are no longer in working order. Another thing I want to explain to you, basically what I was saying earlier, since this was bought grant funds, Williamson County is trying to get it back. So their thought process is they went to the Homeland Security Task Force meeting, which I sit on, and they want the Homeland Security Task Force to make a recommendation to Williamson County on who to give the bus to. Right now, I know there's Blanket County, Fayette County, Caldwell County, City of Georgetown, City of Gerald. There's quite a few people looking at this and are interested in it. So it would be basically an application to the Homeland Security Task Force to ask, give our pros and cons of why we would like to have it, and then it'd be up to the task force to make a recommendation to Williamson County, and then for their commissioners court to actually do the final approval of it. So really, we're asking, you know, do you want us to apply for this? Apply for it.
Do we have housing for it?
Well, no,
Let's keep.
we do not, but, I've asked Commissioner Weir to reach out to the vendor that has done a lot of the coverings for us. And, he did a preliminary, they did a preliminary estimate, if you will. And if you authorize us to apply, and if we get the bus, then I will be proposing a budget amendment, not our budget, amendment to the proposed budget before we solidify a budget to include the cover within the budget. And we're talking in the neighborhood, if I'm not mistaken, it was 19,000 and change. And it's a rather large cover, it's a rather large.
55. 55.
I would ask Mr. Woodring, have you ever used this bus?
I've been in it in a command situation, but I've never driven it. It's a good bus.
So speaking of the driving scenario, this bus weighs 24,000 pounds, so it's a Class C driver. You do not need a CDL for this bus.
Is it operable from day one?
Yes. It actually was just at the Coke Fest in Williamson County.
Is it the same one that you used down at the Smith West Fire? Oh, for 972?
No,
Yeah,
sir.
one set up there.
No, sir, that was the city of Marble Falls.
It sure gave a nice central location for, I don't know how many different fire departments you had.
It does. In the camera situation, you know, the sheriff really uses and likes the camera situation during the fair and rodeo. And, you know, even on those fires, when you're sitting there and you're looking out at the fire, or we're monitoring people that are entering the command station to try to keep track of all the different agencies that are there.
I either misunderstood you in an earlier conversation, or I misunderstood you today. Somehow or other, I thought I understood that it was not the camera itself, but the mechanism that raises the camera, that each one.
So from what I understand, it's the cabling that ties to it, because it's a spiral that goes around the pole as the pole rises, the mast rises. Something in the connector in that, or something of that nature, is what I understand not to be working.
Doesn't even sound like much.
Well, you know, I don't know. Till you get into it, you never know. But I think if this was something that we was to take on, it's a project for someone, that it's it's kind of someone has to own it and someone has to really maintain it and stay on top of it. It can't sit out there and nobody looks at it and then expect everything to work when you're ready to go. It's something that has to be checked periodically and kept up.
Where will it be housed, at the sheriff's department or?
So that's a good question. Either we house it at the sheriff's office or we house it at a precinct yard. Depends on really who's gonna manage it. It needs a 50-inch door line to run to it at all times, so it's plugged in and maintained. You've got electronics in it, so you can't just let it sit in the sun. It's got to be plugged in, it's got to be running.
So, go ahead.
Just a proposal would be kind of where we were thinking about building, well, not really close to where we were thinking about building the CRC, when we were thinking it might have to be built on county property, which is the sheriff's tract land over toward that propane side, and maybe to the west in the back of the southwest corner is what I call it, to place the structure.
And then the power's over there or close.
I'm not sure if there's.
So we have to put the power in with a carport. Yeah. What kind of ads would it sit on?
Well, right now it's sitting in the parking lot, which is covered with the parking area.
concrete down or bank gravel?
I think you can just go in there and stabilize and put some good base in it and be
Good run, on your feet.
good, like,
Does it take a lot of specialized knowledge to be operating all the equipment?
so there's quite a bit of equipment in there, and it's just basically on to what extent you want to use it. I know that what they told me is they have, what they're using now, they're using drones, that you can attach the drones to the monitors inside, but you can see everything from the inside. There's 4 monitors on the inside, and maybe Mr. Woodring knows, but there's 4 monitors on the inside that you can operate individually, or you can put them all together as one base. So but there's a LCRA radio in there, there's Gators radios in there, so there's a lot of capabilities that we'd be able to do, managing an instrument.
Yeah, and if you look at that one photo, you can see there's 4 screens he's talking about, and there's 4 more monitors that.
Which would be able to put our CAD system on those monitors, and they could operate it as a dispatch center.
So you mentioned the trailer, maybe something that we would look into doing that rather than RV type chassis.
Just yes, the answer, I think in a perfect world, we might want to look at it instead of like Marble Halls maybe, but the difference is that's going to cost us a couple $100,000.
So depending on the trailer that you're looking at, I mean, so the key is air conditioning and operability. So
But nobody's offering to give us a trailer right now.
Like you said earlier, if it doesn't work out, we can always get rid of it.
we could always do just like Williamson County's doing right now. We could, if we decide that the trailer is the better route, we could look at moving the equipment that's already placed inside this to a trailer. So I know I can tell you this, and I talked to the judge after the fire. So during this past fire, the smoke bridge fire, we called in for the Vernon County command trailer. We set it up that first night. It was about midnight that the generator stopped working. So we had to then reshuffle and relocate, try to figure out. So you think, I mean, it's an eye opener for me, because I think that it should be working, everything should work. Then you get out, they deployed it, it gets set up, and then it don't work. And I imagine everybody feels about that big in that scenario. So that's why I say that it's just somebody has to take ownership of it and maintenance and, call it their day.
Is that what you're saying you might do?
Depends on the location.
Sounds like you're the most familiar.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, there's some people that are very more capable of some of the electronics than I am, I'll tell you that.
What about the depending on the location?
Well, if it's something that's sitting in the sheriff's office yard, then I'm hopefully that we can have somebody within the sheriff's office that's gonna call it theirs and gonna go out there, weekly and start it and run it. Where if it's sitting in my yard, or Angel's yard, or y'all's yard, hopefully one of your road hands is gonna take that position on.
Because now on that level, started I think, real live maintenance issues. Y'all are in the process of creating a maintenance department. But on the level of checking it out, authorizing it to go to land,
we can look at that 2 different ways. That could be emergency management, or it could be the sheriff's office. So, Originally, I would anticipate that it would be housed under the emergency management side of things. And that way, depending on if it's just a fire, I'm not trying to pull in a deputy that's not already on duty, where I can work with either myself or road and bridge hands, you know, to work in the late hours. A lot of times during these events, during these emergencies, you know, pretty much all my deputies are on 290 this past fire, and they wouldn't have had time to go get a command bus and get it set up for you. So that'd be something that someone else would have to do. So that's where I think more like road and bridge hands to utilize during emergency situations to, just like we use your guys to set up the message boards.
And when it came to monitoring this rodeo or whatever, that area, then that would probably be an annual event. They would set up naturally and run with their own people.
Yeah, and you know, another thing that I mentioned to the judge, and I would like to see, is the city of Humboldt Falls, in order to utilize their bus a little bit more frequently, they set it up at all home games, all home football games. So then they monitor that, you know, so maybe that's something that we could set up in Johnson City and in Plainville during, whether it be just major home games or something of that nature, that allows the local law enforcement, the local PDs to actually get in it and utilize it and, you know, get more familiar with it. Because you don't want to be doing a learning curve in the middle of an incident. So you want people that are familiar with it and they know what they're doing when they get in there. It would be our goal, my goal, to, you know, when someone, let's just say Blanco PD would ask for it, we'd go set it up, and they would run it. And then they'd call us when they're done, and then we'd go pick it up, just as we do with Vernon County.
Of course, there's one game that absolutely makes sense, and that's the 2 o'clock game. So, if you, I don't know what, from your questions, I'm not sure where you are yet, but if you're thinking of it, your motion could be a couple of things. It could be to approve us applying for it and also authorizing accepting it, because we're not. But the reason I throw that out there is because I understand that the decision is intended to be made on the 17th.
Well, that was the original intent until they came to Homeland Security Task Force last week. And now that their task force recommendation was that for anybody that is interested in it, would need to make an application and submit an application of some sort back to the task force, which we would meet at the beginning of September. And we would evaluate, and the task force would make a recommendation to Williamson County in order to, this is who we propose that you give it to. So, and then it's still up to their court to make that final determination. So, I don't know when the timing will happen, as far as the application that we'll need to submit to the task force. That's probably going to happen prior to our next meeting. So, I think if we're going to make a motion, we need to make a motion in reference to that, to allow the judge in the emergency management office to make application. Basically, the task force don't want to commit to giving it to a county or a city that their governing body does not approve. So they want the governing body to write a letter to say, you know, yes, we as this county would like, you know, are interested and would take over the responsibility of this vehicle.
Would this bus have been useful during the 2015 flood?
This bus would have been useful in lots of scenarios.
So not just fires?
Not just fires, used for anything, yeah. So, any time that you're looking at more than one operational curve, this bus will come in handy. You know, you really wouldn't want to pull it out for a little grass fire that's going to take, you know, 2 hours or 3 hours. You would operate that one off your trucks like we do today. However, if you're bringing in 15 agencies, it's kind of hard to keep track of everybody that's coming in, and this bus would be beneficial in that scenario. And it does have plotters, it does have where you can print maps on the scene in it. Now, some of that stuff Williamson County will be taking out, things that they didn't purchase with the grant. So, there might be some things that we want to purchase, put back in it to make it what we want it to work.
This will hurt with an application. I'm for putting in an application. I mean, because of the window of time frame, if you don't do it now, it's gone anyway, right?
Sure, somebody's gonna receive it.
Okay.
When we making a motion, okay.
Trying to figure out how to work it. I'd like to make a motion approving the application for the instant command bus from Williamson County.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Granberg, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? All right, moving on to item 15. This is a presentation regarding, if I can say this correct, Riviera Blanc.
This is Ms. Kelly Custer. She is going to give us a presentation. It's informational only about potential event center, housing, all kinds of activities going on property, precinct 4, Lot 1. Good morning.
Good morning, Judge Commissioners. May I begin?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Kelly Kinsler. I'm the Business Development Director with Palmco Inc. Jay Palmer is also in attendance. He is the owner of the development we're going to be speaking about today. And all of you have this, I have extras.
Can you, I hate to interrupt your flow, but this presentation that you're doing today, is this already published somewhere or is it just here?
Judge Commissioners, this is not published anywhere with the exception of the City of Blanco's website. It has been published.
So that means it's out there in the World Wide Web.
That's correct.
I have some, I've been given some expressions of concern because our county seal is part of this presentation. Yeah, I think it's page 12. And typically, before the county seal gets used by someone, it's authorized. And I'm not aware that we authorized it, so we would ask you to take it off as soon as you can.
Judge Gray, Commissioners, that table that you have in front of you today is not on the World Wide Web. This is just for your information.
Still for further business, unless the county authorizes it, I appreciate you taking it.
Judge, thank you.
And I'm sorry, okay.
I appreciate the feedback. I don't want to read to you what you already have, so I'll move through the pictures. What we were attempting to do with the first several slides, if you look at slide 4, that's just the Blanco River and the commercial events that are planned. And the next page, you can see the conceptual, which is slide 5, a conceptual Riviera Blanc winery. Next couple of pages that was done by the architect. Slides 7 and 8 are some photos of the event center. There will also be lodging on slide 9, and these, if you see the conceptual there from the architect, they're casitas, which will be elevated enough so that their front patio view would be of the Blanco River. Riviera Blanc, I don't know how important it is at this time to let you know, but I thought the more information the better. If you look on slide 10, we're able to show you an estimated water consumption per day, as well as an estimated wastewater consumption. There is also a possibility on slide 11 and 12 that if we were able to get every government involved, that we could construct a city-county park. Still on the table, but doesn't have to be done. We have talked to the school about what their needs were as far as the park and the fields, and we have an inventory from them. So it's definitely on the table, but it's something that we have to talk about in negotiations. On page 13, there's just a little bit more information about watering the park, because that park, because of its proximity to the wastewater treatment plant from the city, could actually be watered with affluent water, and they desperately need a place for that affluent water to go. And then slide 14, you'll see there's a residential component to it, which is really what we dissect a little bit later in the presentation. Slide 15 shows the current residential plan without any involvement from the city, the county, or the school. And that is the north end of the property you can see up there. That, as it is now, without any involvement, is either 15 homes on 20 acres or 20 homes on 15 acres. But if you go down to slide 16, there is another conceptual with more homes on it. And these homes are on 2 and 2.5 acre lots. So slide 17, you see the estimated consumption for 115 homes. So why should you care about this development? So one thing on slide 19, which really isn't your problem, but it is a cool thing that the project is able to do, is the project should be able to absorb the treated effluent water from the Blanco River. Actually through two means. Number one, through watering the park, and number two, you could potentially run purple pipe to the residences and actually water lawns with that versus discharging into the river. Another reason we should care about this development is we could look at building a park. We could look at some infrastructure, some additional infrastructure. And then other amenities and enhancements which might increase the quality of life for both Blanco, Johnson City, and the county. So then on slide 21, there's some numbers going on there. And I kind of like slide 23 the best and 24 because it puts it into a table for you. So if I can draw your attention to 23 and 24, that top table shows you the development with 15 and 20 homes without a TERS or a kid involved whatsoever. That is what I estimate based on your, 3.900 tax rate, that I estimate the county would bring in taxes. The reason that number is what it is because on a 15 or a 20 acre lot, of course, when they need to tax is the home and the acreage, or the acre that it sits on, because the rest of it would be probably wildlife present. But then the bottom, right down there on table 24, you see what would happen with the TERS. And I threw a big number out there just messing around, but you can see with 115 homes what it does with the TERS, and with 150 homes what it does with the TERS. Now, if we were to develop 115 or 150 homes, they would be on 2.5 acre tracts and 2 acre tracts, and we would have to annex into the city because through your code, we are not able to do that. But if during negotiations we decided we wanted larger acres so that we could comply with county regulations and just do a PID and a TERS or whatever other economic development tools we see fit as a team, we could actually do it just with the county. We could put 75 homes on 5 acres. So, and then I calculated that. If you calculate the 75 homes at 1.5 million apiece, and of course I'm just throwing out a number out there on what the homes might be valued at, and you multiply it by your tax rate, which is 0.3900, divide by 100, and you get $5,850, times 75 homes, which would be $438,700 in additional revenue. So those slides are important, but of course, I just literally manipulated it here with scratch, just playing around with the numbers, so that we were able to demonstrate that if the current project goes forward, you're certainly going to see tax revenue from it. But if the current project goes forward and we have the county as a partner and we work on some type of economic development package, then the revenues are increased to the county of Waco. Some additional reasons on page 25, quality of life, the TCEQ violations that aren't your problem, they're the city's problem right now that exist. So on page 26, we talk about who's paying for all of this. And I just want to make really clear, I'm sure every one of you understands this, but there is no tax burden to the current county residents whatsoever. The burden would be to the new residents that come in and pay county taxes. And I have discussed this with Commissioner Granberg at length, actually. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Commissioner Granberg.
Well, kind of, my concern is the entrance off the highway getting into this property. It's going to require crossing across the river. And there was a thought maybe through another way it could be, but apparently that's not going to really work. So the main thing would be access off 165.
Yes, sir. So Judge Commissioner Granberg, we actually thought that we had a deal with a neighbor, and then through you, I actually learned that we did not. And so what happens is we just go back to the original plan. The original plan is where the dam is, you would just elevate that into a bridge. And so we actually have the Palm Coast engineer speaking to the city's engineer, because obviously, because it is in the city's ETJ, we have to go through them. We're talking about access to that bridge right now. So then on slide 28, I have some costs that could qualify in terms of you all would know, any other additional needs that the county might want to throw in there. I don't know what your agenda is or what you're looking for. Another possibility is this is a Chapter 380 agreement, which I discussed in slide 29. What we're asking for today is absolutely no commitment from the county as far as which economic development tool we might use, what formula we might use. We don't know, because we haven't been able to sit at the table with you. And what we want to do today is we want to sit at the table with you. We want to be able to just discuss the tools that are out there and get your thoughts. You all know the thoughts and the concerns and the needs of the citizens of this county. You're their representatives. So that is all we want today, is just a commitment that I don't know who you would assign, maybe Judge Bray, I don't know who it would be, but someone from the county could sit down and talk to us and look at this development and see what we can bring to the table to increase the quality of life and your tax base in Blanco County. So like I said, I don't want to read these slides that you have with you for quite a while, but I can definitely stand for questions and hope that we can have some further discussions on this.
Can you remind me the number you gave, the number of houses you'd be talking about?
There are different scenarios, Judge.
Depending on the acreage and all of that. So that's range. What was your range?
So the range, the way the project was laid out, without an economic development package whatsoever, is 15 to 20 homes. With an economic development package, But only with the county, we would go about 75 homes on 5 acres. If we got city involved, we would go with 115 to 150 homes. So just depends.
Let me pick 75.
Okay,
So a tax increment reinvestment zone situation would take the county taxes from those 75 homes and direct it towards whatever the tourism is funding and operating.
Judge Commissioner, so that is partially correct. It depends, a piece of the property taxes, yes, absolutely. And then once the TERS is paid off, it comes back. Now, whether it's 20, 50, or 80% of the taxes, we don't know until we sit down at a table. A PID, however, takes nothing from the property assessments or the property taxes. We could actually do a PID with the county.
And where does a PID get funded from?
So a PID, what you do with a PID is you, the properties that are being purchased are assessed a PID fee. And so what I recall when I was learning about PIDs all the time is disclosure, disclosure, disclosure. It just stuck in my head. And so with the PID, as you're selling the properties in the home, you have to make certain that they understand what the property taxes are, whether it be from, the city, the county, or emergency services, whoever, but they also pay an additional fee. The homeowners do, it's a PID.
It's a little bit like a mud,
There you go.
dollars disclosures.
There you go. That's right. And then that PID goes to service, the project itself. So there's so many things that we can do. Those two tables are just examples, but really want to sit at the table with you and we want to know what your ideas are. I actually really enjoyed meeting with Commissioner Granberg. We went through the property and we talked about each of the pieces and what would happen, and he had so many questions. And I also will say off topic a little bit, but I like to hear all the old stories about Waco, so I really enjoyed it. But I think that right now, nothing is set in stone, but we sure would like to sit at the table with you and talk about it.
And what more is there to say with this? Just trying to figure out what that discussion would be like.
So I think, the judge commissioners, that discussion would be playing around with the numbers, talking about PID and TERS eligible expenses under the law. I offered Commissioner Granberg this as we met, and I see that the next phase, we would probably need this, is taking each of you out there and showing you what's going on so that when we sit at a table and talk about it, we're all talking about the same thing and the same amenities, whatever those amenities might be. But
So I guess this is not a gated.
no, commissioners, it depends. So if there are no PID and no TERS, then it would probably be a
I noticed someone else in attendance today that has done quite a bit of development here in Waco County. And I saw swimming, on their developments, I saw swimming pools and parks and all kinds of recreational facilities. So, and it didn't take anything from us. Yeah.
So, judge commissioners, I'll tell you the biggest reason for this is the fact that affluent water can water everything. You can have a nice big park, you can have lawns in these neighborhoods, and you're not wasting water, the resource of water. You're actually using affluent water. That's a big deal with this project right now. The extra amenities, it just depends on how much Waco needs or what. The park that you see in here is extremely expensive park on page the 12. That is a big park with lots of amenities, and we already, just by speaking with the schools, understand a little more, we would change that a little bit because we know what the schools need. But that right there is a big deal. Getting the affluent water to places is a big deal.
So where would you get your drinking water?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Where would you get your drinking water?
Judge and Commissioner, the drinking water would come in one of two places. Right now, as the project is planned, it's from wells that actually sit on the property. If we were to go into a partnership with city, we might end up hooking up to city water. So it's one of the two. If we did not go into, we did not strike an agreement with the city, then definitely we would be well water.
Which the city is currently in a stage 3, right?
Judge, Commissioner, yes, they're definitely in stage 3 water right now. They're actually receiving their water from Canyon Lake because they're getting their water tank rebuilt.
You talking about water wells independently per line, per tract? Are you talking about a water system based on the wells that y'all have?
Judge, Commissioner, we're talking about a water system.
Water system.
Yes.
Your PID or TERS is based off the footprint of the subdivision, or is it which outside?
Judge, Commissioner, it can only, a PID or a TERS can only affect the area that it's in. You have to actually designate what area is PID and what area is TERS.
And they're all within the parameters of the subdivision.
Yes, that's correct.
Do you remember? Do you remember? Have there been any projections or estimates, overall subject, in your, pertaining to your event center, how big that is?
This is the great secret. Judge, Commissioners, I want to introduce Jay Palmer. He actually is very familiar with the event center. He'll be able to tell you more about it. Is that acceptable?
Yeah, don't go away.
Okay, I'll be right here.
Thank you, Judge, Commissioner. My name is Jay Palmer. I'm originally from McAllen, Texas. I've been living in Austin for the last 18 years, and I've had this ranch in Blanco for the last 7 years. Our original intent was to develop the riverfront property, the river frontage property, with an event center, approximately 15,000 square feet, capable of accommodating up to 400 people seated at one time, with full catering facilities, weddings, reunions, various corporate events, things of this nature, as well as a winery tasting room at the other end of the river frontage, and some cottages to be rented out in conjunction with event centers. That was our original intent, and eventually the development of about 300 acres on the far north end of the property into ranchettes, as we call it, 10 to 15 acre tracts, which seem to be a popular item in and around the hill country. We've already planted approximately 10 acres of vineyards, and we're into their third year now. And a problem that we've found since we purchased the property was that the city's wastewater treatment plant, who for 20 years had been irrigating on a couple of our pastures for a hay production operation. When we bought the ranch, we indicated to the city that we would no longer be utilizing their irrigation facilities at the end of the lease when we were going to develop the property. A real long story short, we are inundated from time to time with flood water that the city has not been able to control, and therefore we've had to develop a vineyard in another area until this comes under control. It continues to this day to be problematic. So in trying to come up with a way to accommodate the city's wastewater, rather than have it dumped into the Blanco River, we studied the idea of some of the upland development, developed in a way that could utilize this irrigation water. And the idea of a PID came into play. But a PID is bonds are serviced through the affluent taxes, and we weren't generating affluent taxes to speak of on 10, 15 acre tracts. So therefore, we come up with a new subdivision program that involved 2 acre tracts. And based upon that, the projected taxes to service bonds could enable public utilities to be developed. Not only infrastructure for the entire development, but primarily a park that could be designed in such a way that it could utilize that effluent water. And there's a lot of it that needs to be distributed in some kind of a fashion other than across our pastures into the river. And so it's hilly, some of it's rocky. It needs to be developed in the way of a park or something that would retain that effluent water. Not only can we do this, but we can run a purple pipe up to every one of those 150 lots with separate meter, and those lot owners could utilize effluent water for their irrigation. So between the 80 acre park and the 300 acres of residential, we feel like that takes care of the city's discharge problems. And we compare that to what the Metals Foundation and the City of Our Springs and other folks that have come in and recommended ways to take care of it with a budget of $8 million. And we're saying if we could do a pit and a TERS, we could get control of that. We could also have monies in there to improve the wastewater treatment plant as it relates to our project. We could improve the water delivery system as it relates to our project. All of this without any expenditure on behalf of the city of Blanco. And we're here today to point out that the way these bonds are serviced is through a fee that is added on to the lot owners of the 150 lots. And the TERS, depending on what percentage of the city of Blanco or the county of Blanco would allow us to participate in, could bring that fee down where it'll still be a premium to everybody that lives out in the project, but the TERS could bring that fee down somewhat to a manageable point. As Kelly just mentioned, we have a PID can be participated, a TERS can be participated by the city, the county, and even the school district. And so we've visited with the city, visited with the school district. There's some things about the project that are beneficial to everyone. I want to reemphasize that I didn't come into this project with the idea that we were going to do a PID or a TERS, but I didn't come into this project with the idea that I'd be inundated with effluent water coming across our pastures at the rate and the volume that it has been. I mean, in the last year, we've had 3 floods of over 3 million gallons of effluent, and I don't know that we're getting any closer to a solution. And it seems to me that our project and what we're proposing is probably the best way to accommodate that effluent water right now. It's a risk on my part. I was not interested in developing residential. I've done it before. I'm a commercial real estate developer. But I think there's probably a market out there for this many lots, this size lots over a period of time. And we're willing to take a chance with it. We think it is tremendously beneficial to the city of Blanco, the county of Blanco. And we're interested in seeing if the county commissioners and the judge are willing to allow the experts that we've hired in the way of PID and PERS, who have done probably 80% of all the PIDs and PERS in the Hill Country. If we could sit down with some of your people and talk about how this could come together, and that's all we're asking for. We're asking to find out if there is an interest level in what we could provide you and what you could allow us to do. We're not trying to come into your budget and take anything out of your budget. We're trying to say, can we participate with the county to where some of those future ad home taxes could go towards the debt service on the PID and PERS. And that's just go over here. I will take any questions you might.
Well, I have a question, and I asked it, and she referred to, and I forgot my question.
The size of the events and not believing.
I think that's what, I think you did, ultimately answer that, 15,000 square feet, 400 seated individuals. What, have you done a pro forma on, what do you think the rental rates for that kind of facility are?
We have done 10 ways to Sunday on.
Let me just include.
Again, it depends on the number of people. If it's catered, if it's to be catered, if they're utilizing our services, we have a full-time staff, a chef that's catering it. They can run in the full facility to run as much as $10,000 an event.
What if you were on a shoestring budget, what would be the least you think it would to get the facility for payment?
We've already been approached by the school district saying that they would love to be able to hold school events, proms, special events out there, and would we be able to accommodate that? And I said, we certainly will.
Yeah, but what would be the price?
Probably half of that number I just threw out, maybe less than that. We have an architectural firm out of San Antonio called Lake Flato. They're a premier architectural group in the Gulf. They've been working on this project for 2 years. We have a general contractor out of Austin and Dallas, Rogers O'Brien. They've been developing the downtown Austin area. They've been providing us the construction management services for the last 2 years. We've got engineers involved.
Can you disclose who this group is? If you may not want to tell us, but can you tell us who this group is that you say is 80% of the charges in the country that you're utilizing?
Yes, I believe it's probably the presentation. Rick Rosenberg is the principal that we're dealing with, DEP.
DPG Associates, but I just want, there's one correction. So.
I'm sure there's probably a few corrections. I appreciate your time.
So, I actually spoke with Craig Cunningham, who I know you all have used. And he spoke very highly of Region 3. And he, it doesn't ring a bell to you? Wow, no, I just spoke to him like a week ago. He said that he has done stuff with the county. I don't know what the projects were, but he also did the wastewater treatment plant and the water treatment plant for the city. So they do projects as well here, but the company that Tom Cole hired does do 80% of the projects in the area, but what he said is the Austin and the surrounding area, Hill Country, so I know that they expand beyond the Hill Country.
Yeah, I mean, most churches are in, counties and cities that are much, much, much larger than this.
The Judge Ray
Don't
Commissioners.
count honesty, I mean, in fact, I think you have some experience. San Antonio, Bear County, I don't even know how many churches there are in there. So by numbers, there's just a lot more going on there in Travis County and Comal County and places like that than here. Right?
Yes, no, you're correct, Judge. There are many tourism pits throughout Texas.
Can you, bear with me just a minute, hang on.
Yes.
I can't, this map, is not helping me. Are we looking at 165 going west, and this is on the north side of 165 or on the south side?
The entrance to this property is right before you cross the 165 bridge.
Okay, it's on the north or more like the north side.
Yes.
So it's, and more likely the north side of the river.
Well, it'd be
Across the river.
yeah, be across.
What do you want to call that? But it's northwest, but it's not south. Right? And this property that used to be hayfields, and used to be sprayed on, is that city limits, ETJ?
There's always been it's kind of one of the situations, a couple of years ago, we already started planning, elevating the crossing. And there was always an issue, well, who is the city? Is it the county? We had no permitting process for crossing the river. It's a TCEQ would be involved. And so that has always been kind of a gray area, where the ETJ is, where the city limits are, who in a development situation like this, who would actually fall as.
Okay, hang on a minute. I'm having trouble with this. How is it gray? There's a map somewhere that has Johnson city limits. There's a map somewhere that probably has Blanco municipal city limits, right? And then we know from statute that they have a half-mile ETJ. I think. So how is it unclear whether this is or isn't in the ETJ?
You can get that.
Judge Commissioner Granberg, it is in the ETJ.
It is.
Yes, it is in the ETJ.
It's not the city.
In October, the whole project is in the TJ.
Judge Commissioner Brew, yes, the whole project is in the ETJ.
So, as we now know, in recent history, the county delegated the city of Johnson City and the city of Blanco to regulate subdivision development in their ETJs. So this is really the city of Blanco project to oversee.
So Judge Bray, Commissioners, depends what the city is responsible for, or what we would have to coordinate with the city, for instance, would be the street, the bridges. But none of the city codes apply to the ETJ.
You deal with them with water and sewer, right?
Judge Commissioner Ware, it depends. So the original way this project was developed, it doesn't rely on the city for water and sewer. If we end up entering into any type of agreement with the city, then it could rely on city water and sewer.
Yeah, but that original was, what was it, 15?
15 homes on 20 acres or 20 acres on 15 homes, no city.
You don't really want to.
Excuse me?
You don't really want to do it. Right?
Judge Commissioners, Mr. Palmer definitely wanted to do that at the beginning. But now that we see the issues, and I want to say, we both recognize those wastewater issues are not your issues, and we know that. We're very clear. But the issues continue, and the property owner is affected. So when we kind of reworked this, like, look, we could do something positive and constructive with that. You know, they're not gonna build anything, maybe we can build it. Maybe we can get that water off the prime property, the commercial property, and actually do something good with it. We can build a park, maybe we can walk the trails, maybe we can water residents' lawns. So this body, I'll just call a spade, from being around this area. This body seems to be, more development friendly and seems to, I just feel like from what I've seen, that you all would be willing to sit at a table and talk to us as far as how this is gonna affect the county. And how it can impact the county. A couple of other things I wanted to mention, just to be really clear. Mr. Palmer and I both have this thing about using PID and TERS interchangeably. So he said that the PID could be done with the city or the county or the schools. So a PID can only be done with the city or the county, but a TERS can be done with all three. And you can have, 1 PID, 3 TERS, 0 PIDs, 3 TERS. It just depends. Until we sit down and talk about it, it's kind of hard. I gave you those tables, but I could have done 10 more.
In your experience as can you do a TERS or a PID in relation to an emergency service district's taxing?
Judge, Commissioner, I believe the answer is no. But I'm not certain, but I'm 95% sure the answer is no.
So, okay, that alleviates a concern. So you have 75 homes and they get called on for fire or EMS services. That's not tax money that's been moved away for water and sewer parks from the fire and emergency services. It's just tax money that would be moved away from us when Sheriff Jackson, you call it.
So, Judge, Commissioners, a couple of things about your ESD. Number one, you have that really nice building right there that's maybe a half a mile from the property, Commissioner, is that about right? About right? So that's nice, but, they've got .1 is their, property taxes. So it's a little harder to work with them than it is the city or the county or the schools. But I don't believe you can do a PID or a TERS with them anyway. I also wanted to mention something that we haven't brought up today, and that is the outlying taxes. We get honed in with PID and TERS, right, on property taxes. And we forget to sometimes think about the fact that the casitas bring in the sales taxes that you receive part of, and hot taxes, the venue itself, that, you would receive taxes off of that, people renting the venue or groups renting the venue. You receive taxes off the bottles of wine sold there. You receive taxes off, Mr. Palmer, I think you mentioned the restaurant. Okay, so above the winery, we're looking at the possibility of a restaurant, but a very nice restaurant, which would require reservations and 5 or 7 course meal, just to try to add a fine dining value or element to the area. And the other thing that I think is important to note is there's a feasibility study that is being done on this property, and the feasibility study indicates that every single weekend this place will be utilized and rented out. And the other thing that I think is important that Mr. Palmer just talked about is when we met with the school district, we met with the principals, the athletic directors, and what is the need, and they just had that bond that got passed. So what are you missing? What could we add that would help the city and the county? They gave us some really good ideas. One idea that they gave us was, they said that you all do baseball tournaments, people are bused back and forth, or they go back and forth between Blanco and Johnson City, because you don't have the fields together. And so they were talking about, like the county fields where the Johnson City and Blanco could use, like through a youth group, use the baseball, softball fields. So we had some really good ideas from them, and we're keeping it in mind, the construction of the park. And the other thing that was important to the school, they asked about immediately is, what about prom, what about some of the banquets, academic banquets, athletic banquets, and Mr. Palmer was very gracious and said, we do it at a certain time, absolutely, just do a user agreement with the schools for that too. So we want to be a community project. And the easy thing to do, in my opinion, is go right back to these original plans and scrap, the bureaucracy. But the problem is the water issue still exists. The water dumping from the city still dumps on this piece of property that someone is investing a lot of money in. And so, like I said at the beginning, I know it's not your problem, but it's a really cool solution to have nice amenity, a nicer quality of life. Just anytime you can enhance their quality of life, that's a good thing. And to use a resource that either is going to get dumped into the Blanco River, which the city council says, no, it's not, so it's being dumped on this property. And doing something constructive with it.
Can I ask you, you were talking about the schools, they were excited or interested in using the fields and stuff, and you mentioned that they participated in terms.
Judge Commissioner Weir, you're right.
Okay, with that, did they show interest?
So they definitely showed interest, but we have not gone to the school or anything like that yet. No, we've just asked the people, like the principals, the athletic director, so what do you need, what are you interested in? We don't want to build something that's not going to get used, we want to build something and we don't want to build anything, we don't want to duplicate efforts either. They got some neat things in that bond package, right? And so how can we enhance it, how can we take it a few steps further? That was our meeting with the schools.
Let me ask you one other about the problem. Excuse me. One other about the crossing. Y'all were talking about raising, making the crossing higher, and I guess further out, floodplain. But with that said, is that your only entrance or exit? You have an emergency one, a second.
We talked with the city about the idea of you can call it primary or secondary, in the northwest corner, there are a couple of property owners that we have visited with regarding access out of the residential, the park area to ultimately get back to 281.
Okay.
So that we would definitely have to have another one. Now, if we did not have a access to a public street that does not go through a floodplain, then we'd have to build a bridge on 165 over that floodplain. But if we could have another entrance in the northwest quadrant that gets us over to Sunset Ridge or all the way over to 281, then we could expand on the dam that's there. I call it the dam bridge. The bridge and the dam that's there into a wider, same level type of crossing, which is down to the river and cross, which could suffice as well.
I'm concerned with that because let's say unusual Memorial Day, we always use that as an example. And that's a time when everybody's out. There's a possibility you could have 500 or 600 people, counting residents and people in there during a Memorial Day flood or something like that. Just something to go with that bridge. So what do you do at that point? How do you back those people?
We have taken into consideration we would have to exit. We're trying to work into this project a major access point up in the northwest corner, not the corner, in the northwest side. That could be utilized. We've had another neighbor that said, well, we'll give you an access, a gate for emergency purposes only. We don't really want to do that. We want to have another major way in and out. We thought we had secondary access along Heimer Road, and we do have an easement, but the gentleman that has a portion of that easement does not want to see it become a city or a county-owned road, so we still have a way going out, but that is the flood. And that's close to the river the bridge that washed out. Now, one more thing if I could add on what Kelly was saying. One of the other things that the principal and the supervisor superintendent told us was that there's 300 some odd kids in high school, and over 50% of them participate in the FFA program of some sort. And on that proposed park area, there is a rodeo arena. And they indicated to us that that will be tremendously helpful to the kids that participate in FFA. Because right now, they have to take their animals to Johnson City. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but they don't have a way to handle this in their own backyard.
Did they tear down the arena that's on 281 next to Ed Park?
Well, that's an interesting question. No, they did not, but they also said when they do tournaments, baseball tournaments, they're limited to 6 teams because all 6 teams have to play on one baseball field.
I didn't ask about baseball, we were talking about.
Well, my question is, I'm sorry, my question, but my answer was, I don't know why they didn't choose to use Yet Park for baseball.
I'm not talking about baseball. You said there's a rodeo arena going to put in your development for the FFA and the 4-H kids, so that they can bring their animals, so they don't have to bring them to Johnson City.
Yes.
And I'm saying a rodeo arena, I'm pretty sure exists in this, in or near the city of Blanco right now.
It does.
Okay.
Judge Ray, commissioners, the answer is there's a rodeo arena exists, there's no place for their animals, there's no show barns or anything like that. Like
So you're going to build an entire fairground show barn development within this development?
Behind the arena was places for the animals. And that does not exist right now in Judy.
Is that part of this plan? Do I see here on the map?
Judge Commissioner Lee, yes, it is.
And you do know
That's a
that-
small map and legend, I'm sorry.
You do know that, you can tell I'm getting a little bit tense about this one, because I don't think it's being analyzed correctly. You say, and he says, the kids in Blanco have got to bring their animals up to Johnson City. You do know that there's 714 square miles in Blanco County, and that kids live not just right there next to the fairgrounds, they live all over, so everybody, my daughter had to take her kids to the fairgrounds up there. However many miles that was, and however many trailer trips we took. So I don't really understand how that is such a hardship on the people, on the kids in Blanco, any more than it is the kids in Round Mountain.
Judge, Commissioners, I agree with you. What Mr. Palmer is repeating is what the school athletic director and principals told us, which was there's no place, they have to go to Johnson City, the kids around Blanco.
Well, here's the thing,
That's all.
here's why it rubs me wrong.
Yeah.
Because I'm not from here. Wasn't born in Johnson City, I wasn't born in Blanco. And I really reject this Blanco Johnson City thing. And this kind of talk fosters that in my mind.
So
I'm not saying that Blanco County's not big enough to have 2 event centers or 2 of this or 2 of that. But when you start winnowing it down to the level that 4-H kids, they don't need to come to Johnson City, they stay in Blanco. I start getting a little anxious about it. And by the way, I want to move back to the real matters. The real answer is what he's going to do about it. He's not going to do anything about it. When you have a 500-year flood like the Memorial Day flood, then what happens is more of those personnel carriers come out of San Antonio or wherever they came out of, and they ford the river to pull people out of these things. Nobody's going to be able to handle that kind of flood.
No. I'm trying to imagine that bridge that you're talking about building. Is it like the one on 165 there in the settlement? And that one has been breached. So I'm just wondering what it's going to look like. How you can take 200 to 600 people at any point in time and evacuate them out of there.
You know, that's what emergency management does. When that happens, it happens. When you live in the city limits, right?
I do.
And you live in the city limits, right? So both of you probably have some experiences. I'm curious about this flooding effluent that's going on the managed property. I thought y'all voted for these big bonds and you were having this big
I believe we did. Now,
sewer treatment plant.
this has been an ongoing thing for a while now, if I'm not mistaken.
Judge, Commissioner, you're correct, and I will tell you that there are two bonds that the city of Blanco got. One was for your wastewater treatment plant, one was for your water treatment plant. The issue right now is that the new wastewater treatment plant that was built on your bonds, was built to discharge. Blanco has a discharge permit, but you have a governing body with the city now who does not want to discharge in spite of the way the plant was built. And so that is causing that affluent water to go everywhere. And so by everywhere, I mean on this gentleman, Mr. Water.
Can we stop a second? You've had careers as city manager here in Marion, you understand this better than me. But when you say effluent water, that's the water that comes out of households and businesses that has excrement waste in it, and then it gets treated. So what gets discharged is not effluent water, right?
Yeah, Judge Gray, Commissioners, it's called effluent water, and it goes through 5 stages. This stage is actually very clean water. The opposition that you'll find from some of the groups around here is that it has a higher level of phosphorus in it. And when phosphorus gets into the river water, it can, depending on the level of the phosphorus, it can turn yellowish, the algae yellowish. And so I truly believe that there's not already, there's definitely going to be a time in the future where we're able to lower that phosphorus level, and that water literally will be able to drink. But right now, with the treatment at 5 ponds, we can get it to that level.
Well, from what I've seen, past history with the city, they had those circle pivots, and the idea was to irrigate pastures. Well, it was poorly managed. The pivots are in a pile of gold. It just was not managed properly. That's when they started having issues with the treated water overflowing out of their tanks. And supposedly this new treatment facility is going to handle that. And I think they still do some surface irrigation. And they're looking into the feasibility of actually selling the water for construction purposes. So, but yes, that's been an ongoing problem with water getting to the river. Has been like that for years.
Why did y'all build a brand new treatment plant and no place to put the water?
That was a decision of the city council. That made that decision.
Just for further discussion.
I'm sorry?
Just for further discussion.
Like Kelly mentioned, that's not.
Well, why is that further discussion? I mean,
Well, I can't.
If you bring it to us nowadays, and say it's not our problem, but we can assure we'd like to be part of the solution. And yet, I don't have an answer to how we got here. The city is,
No word of asking to participate in that thing.
it's millions of dollars of bonds, bills of treatment plant that they don't use or don't use in a way that I would want that. Does Fredericksburg discharge into the greenhouse river?
Yeah, Judge, Commissioners, I'm very good friends with Fredericksburg City Manager, you think I would know that. I know that New Braunfels does, I don't know about.
Fredericksburg.
So Boston, that's right.
So they're discharging.
They do what we want to do here, we discharge the field for the golfers. That's right. This can be a county project alone, this can be a city project alone, this can be everybody working together alone. Judge Gray, I appreciated your comment on the Johnson City versus Blanco, because in New Mexico, where I was a county manager, I was just telling Mr. Palmer this morning, we always met the city manager, the county manager, and the superintendent. New Mexico set up different, it has a county manager instead of a county judge, but we always made certain that efforts were collaborated, so that you don't duplicate efforts, you don't waste taxpayer money. And it would be nice to see more of that in this county. I completely agree.
I think, if you're still wanting, after this long discussion, you're still wanting to, maybe sit down and further discuss the details, I think, since it's Commissioner Granberg's precinct, you should be him. Pass that on, so, that would be my opinion.
I'd be willing to do more, but I can't make a final decision. It takes a whole lot. So, actually, honestly, I have some concerns about what you've got in the works. But that's something we can discuss further. As far as you are on the plans and everything, it still feels like there's a lot of ifs in there as far as the secondary way out, other things, the bridge itself, things like that. There's some things that feel like it's in this package. You know, you have to show that, and show what's going on. And there's plenty of ifs.
Judge, Commissioner Ware, I agree, there are definitely many of those in there. And part of the answers to those questions are what our TERS or our PID look like. That will help, that helps determine a lot of things.
Well, and that's where I was volunteering Commissioner Granberg. I think he has a view for what the court thinks about, those kinds of arrangements that can probably participate as well as anybody.
You know, we don't have much experience with those. We had another development attempt with their plan. It did not. So we really have not had any real experience.
This is a great way to walk through it, and talk about the different scenarios and understand what's acceptable to you and what you think enhances the quality of life in your county.
You should know how many of the city, how many of the city like that TERS?
Judge, Commissioner Bruner.
Can I just ask you?
Yes, sir.
You were commenting about the plan not having enough detail, for instance, the secondary access. PID would cover, among other things, access, the purchase of access agreements or access property to do something like this. And so when we say we're exploring, until we find out what is available for really PID and PERS, we really can't go out and say, can we buy an access to your property over here? Or can we buy this property? So we've explored it, but we're not prepared to tell anybody about it. And of course we didn't. We didn't want to get any neighbors stirred up that there's something that's about to happen until we find out what the interest of it is. So we will explore that further. The I hate to say the quality of the effluent, but the level of the effluent water right now is suitable for farming or a hay operation. But to be able to discharge that water onto, let's say, a golf course or someone's yard for irrigation purposes, it has to be elevated to another level, which requires that the treatment plant be modified to produce that level or that quality of effluent. So a PID can also enable the city to improve.
So, I'm sorry, I want to sure I heard you right. They spent however many millions of dollars on this new sewage treatment plant, and it doesn't treat water to a level that can be put on a golf course or
That's right. I wasn't here then.
You're confident in that.
Did you own the property when you played this?
I bought probably 2015.
So that was before or after?
It was right before the flood.
But what did they do their treatment plant?
I think they were already into the expansion of the plant sometime around that period of time or right after. But I also heard that the capacity of it was almost reaching capacity at the time it completed. And the level that I mentioned is a level that is not golf course or residential at this time.
But obviously they contracted with you or whoever the previous landowner was to put this onto that property.
Yes, there was a 20-year lease,
But you already knowing that, right?
knowing that there was 2 years left of the lease.
If you were, consider, got a lot of experience, okay, development experience. If it's not suitable for golf courses or yards, is it suitable to, is it legally suitable to put it through?
Sorry. Judge, commissioners, so it is suitable for a golf course. It is suitable for lots. The problem is what's happening, and it's also suitable to irrigate hay. But right now, they're trying to irrigate the hay, but it just literally has become marginal because there's put too much water on it. So you can do that. But in order to do it where humans will be touching, such as a park or a lawn, it requires more testing. So right now, because it's only water and hay, it's tested once a month. I know the testing is more often, it's
It
weekly.
requires more testing, not treatment.
That's correct,
The
testing.
plant that was built for all that money is good.
It's almost at capacity, so it actually already needs to be expanded, but the level 5, the last pond 5, the treatment of the effluent water can water a golf course right now.
If that's correct, I stand corrected.
With further testing from TEC.
You probably need to, I know we need to move on, but, I just suggest one thing. Have you guys how your project fits with TxDOT's, loop thoughts?
Judge, commissioners, what's been interesting is that the two concepts that I've seen, are actually different, but it does not go through this property.
At all?
No.
Does it come close?
Not close enough.
What two have you seen?
Excuse me?
You said you've seen two scenarios?
Yeah, actually, I had lunch with, what is this kind of, the combo representative, in Austin, and their attorney. And he was showing me a plan that had actually gone west at one time, but now it's off to the east.
When you say off to the east, would be east of your client's property?
That's correct.
So it's deep east.
Deeper east.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. All right.
It's just, asking for the discussion. For the presentation.
We will designate you as our liaison.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Item 16. On the proposed budget, you'll note that, I filed a motion on July 31st. Hearing is being closed first. And, the latest voted that I used for
Okay,
this one
thank you very much, I appreciate
that I was reluctant to submit the budget because I went ahead and incorporated your salary figures that you voted for into my proposal, even though it's not terribly strong proposal of mine. But we did incorporate those numbers in, then all the numbers struggled a little bit here, a little bit there, and came out with a budget that we have proposed before you, for you to acknowledge today. I don't even know how you had a chance to look at it, and I don't know what else to say to you. It's not, it's pretty much like it was last time, other than the salaries have changed. And then I guess on that Friday, before filing, Ms. Fry and Connie and I had an active afternoon, narrowing down the exact numbers to as best we could, and the tax rates as best we could. So we are now proposing 29.95 cents per hundred on the 28.350 cents per hundred on the maintenance and operations side. If you find an interesting thinking page before me, tell me. One more time.
1/6.
Right. So the IRS tax is proposed at 5.821 cents per $100. And it tries to take into account having to stay at the current homestead exemption. And I think we should work next year on doing something with the homestead exemption. So, is there anything that I've forgotten?
I made all the changes that we had talked about in the last meeting. Still waiting on auditor salary from the district judge's meeting.
Yeah, so on your pages, the placeholder, we'll put the auditor salary in as in the same way that we're currently covered non-law enforcement salaries, so 15% plus or longevity. But of course, the district judges get to say something about that. They know that is what's being proposed, and they, I believe, they'll get back to us.
We did get the correct number on juvenile probation, so that's been fixed.
Off the what?
Juvenile probation, that has been fixed.
So Judge, I would like to make a motion to notify on page 8, item 101, to change that to 60,507.
Would you be willing to hold that on until after the hearing?
Can.
What else do we have? Seemed like there was a couple other things that I wanted to say.
On the veteran services, you added 2 lines.
That's right. So if you look at the veteran services pages, there's 2 lines that are added. Some of this is based on Commissioner Weir and I having discussions with other candidates. I'm not asking for any more money, but with those lines there, we might could spread the money.
Page 40.
Not asking for any more money, but with those lines there, we could possibly spread the money around if we came to the point where there's some doc sharing or consultant kind of thing.
I added those lines after I printed.
Okay, so they're not there, but they are there in the proposed version of the following. So it's 2 additional lines that basically allow us to we don't really anticipate two more people, but we want you, what we want to call us, so we'll give it to you, but I understand. And like I said, the money is just spread out. Right?
Yes, sir. That is correct.
That kind of, does that contemplate the kind of conversations we were?
Yes, sir, it does.
Okay. What else?
So, I've been busy on fire.
Like I said, just made a change that y'all had talked about last time. She didn't have all the changes that I made from, that y'all discussed last time.
So they've got that sheet. So in the end,
Was there any more thought given to the longevity for elected officials?
we put that in.
You did put it in?
Yeah. Okay. She said no, and I'm saying yes. She actually does the keystrokes, so it's not.
Okay, so she would,
Yeah, I thought
Never got an answer on that.
sorry,
I don't remember.
but I thought we had the next one, that was my attention.
Okay.
And we can do it for the next one first, right?
Okay.
What?
I have an issue with the base salary for the non-law enforcement personnel. In some cases, it is the same as somebody who's already been here for a year. That doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
I think it should maybe be 35. That's just my opinion.
I saw that as well. But, and I guess you know, the commissioner's views on that, because my thought is, if we're having, the reason they propose these large salary increases, 15%, is because they were worried about attracting, and keeping people. So that getting and attracting but the getting and attracting part is the base salary. And so I didn't take the direction to make the base salary any lower than what we already had it here. I did notice that as well, that there are a couple of people that wind up, who have been here all that long, frankly, and they wind up their increase. In case they were at the base salary, they're still at the base salary, but it's a larger number. In the end, I sort of reconciled that I noticed it like you did. I managed to make myself feel okay about it, but I don't know that the commissioners do, so they may like your rate of 35,000 for base.
Just a thought.
So in the end, you'll notice that you balance it out even with these the increases that you're wanting. It increases the reserve transfer this coming year, over this year by another $40,000. So,
what page now?
it's right at the last page. Not the last page, it's say page 92. 92.
And I guess this is a silly question, but since this is your proposed budget, you feel comfortable with that number one?
I do. because, for two reasons. One, historically, we go under expenses and we do better than revenues. And there's no reason to think that trend isn't going to hold with a bad economy. And two, because the budget's bigger, proportionally, it's not really other transfer than, say, proportionally, it's in big terms, maybe slightly different, but not much. So I don't feel bad about it at all. We didn't do a reserve transfer last year. We were on schedule not to do much of it this year, so I'm not too worried about it.
Though my only concern would be the tax rate. I seen you bringing the tax rate down, and that's, I don't have an issue with it. As long as we're feeling comfortable, and that's I will go with it. I'll leave it alone.
We still have at least a couple more meetings and special meetings. What else? Okay, was that a thumbs up or you just need to?
I'm just twitching.
So, as Harris is saying, it would be great if we could entertain a motion to approve the proposed budget, so we can post it for public hearing.
I make a motion to approve the proposed budget, with the additions.
For the proposal of the budget.
So,
Not asking to approve the budget.
right, yes.
Is there a second?
I'll say.
Commissioner Lear, discussion?
Judge Gray,
Yes.
Commissioner,
Yes.
Commissioner Weaver,
Yes.
Commissioner Mason,
Yes.
Commissioner Bramber,
Yes.
All right. If there's no further discussion on item 16, the burn ban, the senior maps, you know what's been going on right up to today, this morning. So our power resources are just stretched as far as they stretch.
In our current burn ban expires when?
Commissioner, 23rd,
I'm sorry,
23rd.
okay, August 23rd. Anything else on that one? Item 18.
Make a motion, please,
Is
Aaron.
there a second?
Second.
Commissioner Bramber, discussion on there, second. Opposed, motion carries. And so 11:01, we have a posted meeting with the election commission at 11. About 3 or 4 minutes, everybody, and we'll take it to the next meeting.
Yeah.